100,000 construction jobs are set to go. Let's have a look. Good afternoon, everyone. Florian Heise here, and welcome to another episode of Heise Says. Don't worry, got my stein of afternoon coffee, and I thought we'd look at just this 100,000 construction jobs that are set to go by the end of this year. And this was mentioned in an article I read this morning, so I thought I'd do a bit more digging and look at some stuff that we could discuss because, well, sadly I think it's a sign of what's to come. So construction jobs to go as building approvals decline. And let's just jump over here to have a look at Australian GDP from construction. And you can see it's trending down from July 2018 down to now. So the first quarter of this year, we're down to 33,733 million. And July, we're at 35,761, so it's heading down. And also, building approvals are trending, dwelling unit approvals are trending down. Private sector house approvals are trending down. So all the latest indicators about our construction industry are not too flash hot. And combined with the fact that we have developers going bust, and people in arrears with their mortgages, yeah, it looks like this is an accurate assumption or prediction. While the real estate industry is hailing a property comeback, fresh data appears to show it will be a long road to full recovery. Building approvals were down more than 25% in the year to June, the worst annual result in the sector since the post-GST building slump in the early 2000s, according to data from the ABS. And with more pain tipped to come in the construction sector, one economist has warned that up to 100,000 construction jobs could be at risk, hampering the wage growth the RBA is so eagerly seeking to kickstart the economy. Okay, well, 100,000 unemployed people is going to significantly affect your supply demand for labor in those industries and will naturally affect wages. One thing, when we're just looking at wages here, you need to think about and try to find the number of Uber drivers in Australia so we can track that over time. Because a lot of people that are stuck in this situation, you're going to drive Uber. You will happily work for less than the minimum wage, driving Uber around your other commitments just to keep the money coming in. Guaranteed. I know. I've done it. I did it for a stage. Not the best job, but it's easy. You can listen to podcasts while you're driving around. It's not that hard. And I know that, that's something I want to look at because, that's what people will do to keep going. It's an easy entry point. Although the government has made that a lot harder to get into it with all the costs, the licensing, the taxi license, all this stuff you need to get here in Queensland. The entry point to do Uber has changed. So it's a lot harder. It's just showing you where bureaucracy and these things can cause a hampering. So it's kind of a toss-up. So despite analysts tipping a rise of 0.2% in June in approvals overall, they actually declined by 1.2% for the month. So they were predicting a rise and they were completely off. They were 5 times worse than they predicted. While approvals for houses rose slightly at 0.4% in the month, they were still down almost 15% for the year from June. But the biggest drag on the sector is the troubled high-rise sector. Approvals for other dwellings, which include apartments and townhouses, fell 6.5% in June, but they were a whopping 39.3% lower than a year earlier. I mean, that's nearly 40% cut. In New South Wales, the drop in approvals for blocks of 4 stories or higher was down 50% over the past 2 years. That prompted UBS senior economist George Thorneau to say that approvals for high rises of 4 or more stories had collapsed. Well, yeah, it had. Yeah. Marie Kilroy, economist at BIS Oxford Economics, said the plunge in approvals between 2017-18 and 2018-19 financial years was the largest fall since the construction slump that followed the introduction of the GST in 2000. Ms. Kilroy said the data represented a significant decline and was the 12th straight month of year-on-year falls in total approval. 12th straight month. 12th straight month. What's that tell you, guys? What's that tell you? Is there anyone out there involved in the construction game that doesn't feel like at least that part of that sector of the economy isn't in recession? You know, you'll be in the minority. BIS Economics is forecasting the downturn to continue for the rest of 2019, predicting approvals to finally bottom out by either the final quarter of 2019 or the March quarter of 2020. But the apartment market will be more stubborn. Ms. Kilroy said, due to weak demand and damaging publicity around defects in high-rise buildings. Yep. There are several risks to attached dwellings. Yes, there are several risks to attached dwellings. Investors' demand is at extremely low levels. I need a coffee. Developers require pre-sales to start construction, and I would assume that building quality would also be a concern weighing on many buyers' minds. It's okay, just buy off the plan. Someone left a comment on a previous video that buying off the plan is essentially playing the futures on property, which I like, which makes a lot of sense. You know, we believe apartments will take longer to come back, especially high density. Well, yes. Mr. Thuneau said while optimism had returned to housing since the election, prompting predictions of a 10% surge in home loans, the residential construction outlook is still negative, and that will have huge implications for unemployment. He said, with dwelling investment likely to decline for at least a year, our tracking of construction job ads is consistent with around 100,000 job losses. 100,000 job losses in the construction industry. Damn. With that in mind, UBS believes the IBA will be forced to cut rates by a further 50 basis points to 0.5% in February. AMP Capital senior economist Diana Musina said falling housing construction would not only hit GDP growth over the next year, but also other industries such as construction services, and retail. So here we go, and this is Shane Oliver. The fall in Australian building approvals you can see here. Boom. Look at that. AMP earlier this year predicted the building downturn would claim 60,000 jobs in 2019, with Ms. Misunia predicting unemployment to hit 5.5% over the next 6 months. I wonder if the gig economy will dent our unemployment rates. I mean, how many people, if you had a choice of doing Uber, making a bit of extra money that way, rather than going on the dole, what would you do? What would you do? I know a lot of men, what they would do. What would make them feel pride is to work for no matter what. But Jay Sivpalana, a fund manager with investment company Janus Henderson, said the annual approval figure of 172 wasn't cause for alarm. The number of new dwellings we need each year to meet demand in Australia has been around 150,000 per annum since roughly the 1980s. Though with population growth over the last 5 years, the number is probably closer to 170 per annum. Mr. Sivpalan said the latest figures show there's been a decline, and new apartment approvals in particular are pretty low. But if you dig into the numbers, the overalls are still broadly in line with the 170,000 new dwellings we need each year. But that's got nothing to do with the employment in the sector. It's what we need, but our sector overheated. The sector was overheated. So let's have a look at the SMH, Sydney Morning Herald, take on this. Property sales tumble, leading to predictions of 100,000 job losses. The economy and jobs market is facing a testing few months with fresh evidence the residential construction sector is still struggling. With warnings 100,000 construction workers could lose their jobs. And just if you're fortunate or working in the commercial sector, don't think that this won't affect your involvement in the construction industry, because it all flows through. The economy it's an emergent outcome. So this is why the more and more I'm looking into all of this, I find it funny that people seem to think that they can predict and adequately manage it. Because it's emergent. It's emergent. It's so complicated. We may be able to kind of understand a few implications of things, but I think there's more chance that unknown things will bugger up. The Australian Bureau of Statistics on Tuesday reported a 1.2% drop in building approvals across the country last month, led by a 5.4% fall in New South Wales. While there was a small lift in approvals for houses, in June it was down 14.8% over the past 12 months. Approvals of units and apartments slumped 6.5% in the month. So it's really the same thing they're talking about it here. So we're looking at people predicting 100,000 job losses in this sector. And as we've seen, dwelling approvals, private sector housing approvals are heading down. The construction as a share of Australia's GDP is heading down. So 100,000, that's a big chunk of our... Well, actually, what we'll do is, you know what? Let's have a look here. Labour, employed persons. We'll bring this up. What do we have there? So this is in thousands. The number of employed persons in Australia increased by 12,000 in June 2019 from 12,000 in March. So how do we have... Can I see this? So it's increased number of employed people, employed persons. Thousands. Okay, this is thousands. So that's going to affect a chunk of our unemployment and will increase the unemployment rate if 100,000 people are losing their jobs. And that's also 100,000 people in the economy that will be worried. And how many other people in the construction industry will be worried, will be tightening their belt, won't be spending as much. Maybe this is all tied into why consumer confidence is heading down, why business confidence is heading down. Anyway, guys, thank you for joining me for this afternoon episode. Please like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm seeing comments in the other video where people are saying, it's slowing down here, it's slowing down there. People are selling their vehicles. So, everyone I'm talking to is in a similar boat. That's just my small circle, and it'd be good to see other people's opinions. Anyway, guys, like, share, subscribe, ding the bell, and I'll see you later. Bye for now.